The mental trap that keeps you bound to the past. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how something from years ago can still hijack your energy today? Perhaps it was a heated conversation with a family member, or maybe even a betrayal from a partner. The thing is, it's not actually happening anymore. And yet your body tightens, your mood shifts, and your thoughts start slooping. And suddenly, you're not present. You're back in the past. Chewing on an old wound over and over and over again. Your chest tightens, your jaw stiffens, your breathing gets shallow, and your body shouts, "Not this again." When old pain is still living inside of you, when a moment from years ago can still tighten your chest, shift your mood, or steal you out of the present, most people think they're struggling with the person or a current situation. But what's actually happening is that the past is keeping us bound, not allowing us to be present. We are literally bound to a past event that is no longer happening. It's what happens inside the mind that gets us. In comes rumination. Rumination is when the mind replays distressing experiences over and over again, like a mental slideshow or an internal courtroom. You keep having conversations with people who aren't even in the room. You replay, you revise, defend, prosecute. You even imagine better endings. And every time you do, you bring the past into the present and pay for it with your energy and attention. Unforgiveness doesn't live in the heart first. It lives in where you focus. And here's where it goes even deeper. Because rumination doesn't just replay the past. When something remains emotionally unresolved, when hurt, anger, grief, or disappointment don't get metabolized, the mind doesn't let it go. And that ongoing emotional charge, that's unforgiveness at work. Unforgiveness is what keeps the loop alive. And over time, that loop literally shapes your identity. At first, it sounds like, why did this happen? Why, I should have said this. Or, how could they do this to me? But the longer the loop runs, the quieter the questions get. And the more the story turns into self-definition. It stops being, this happened to me, and slowly becomes, this is me. That's the deeper trap under rumination. And in psychology, we call it cognitive fusion. It's when a thought, a story, or a painful experience doesn't just pass through the mind. It becomes the lens the mind looks through. Not a memory, but a mirror. I saw this clearly when I forgave my mother. You see, my mom spent much of her life clinging to illusions, phantoms of purpose, phantoms of happiness, wearing a mask, disguising the hurt she held that fused her identity, all while never fully facing herself, never really taking that proverbial look in the mirror. And over time, that avoidance hardened into anxiety. What began as anxiety turned into patterns. What began as patterns turned into relationships shaped by fear. And eventually, what went unnamed in her inner world showed up in her body as dementia. But long before the diagnosis, I could already see it. She was living in an inner cave, and the illusions became real. Phantoms became friends. She moved through life stuck in multiple stages of grief at once. Denial, anger, depression, never quite arriving at acceptance. And for a long time, I was angry. Angry that she wouldn't face herself. Angry she wouldn't face her demons. Angry she wouldn't get the help she needed. Angry she couldn't carry forward the peace that I once knew. Stories about who I believed she should have been. Stories about what I believed she should have done. Stories about what I believed I should have had in a mother during my adult life. And these stories, the picture of how she should be, followed me everywhere. Here's what I eventually realized. I wasn't actually related to my mother. I was relating to a mental version of her that I wanted her to be. A phantom of the mother I needed her to be. An imagined version experiencing healthy connections, an imagined future of her enjoying travel and scholarly contributions, an imagined repair of a once upon a time closeness we shared. And every time I rehearsed these stories, I fed them energy, the wrong kind of energy. My nervous system stayed tight because I was gripping something I just could not control. My thoughts spiraled. My emotions stayed in fight, flight, freeze mode. My body carried the cost because rumination was keeping something old alive, because the grip of unforgiveness was quietly choking the life out of me, not just from what happened years ago, but from what had happened last week and the week before and the week before that. When the breaches keep stacking up, the past never feels past. That's how the past keeps its power, by constantly giving it airtime. And emotional reasoning was part of it too. Emotional reasoning is when the mind says, I feel hurt, so this is still happening. Or I feel angry, so this is unresolved. Or perhaps even I feel unsafe, so something must still be wrong. This feeling becomes the fact, and the body sensation becomes the story. And the nervous system keeps orienting towards a past that no longer exists. I forgave my mother about 1.5 years before she died. And that matters because it didn't magically make caregiving easy. Dementia is never easy, but it made it cleaner, less charged, less mentally violent, less emotionally entangling. Forgiving her was not saying what happened in the past was okay. It was saying my mom didn't have the capacity to face what she couldn't face. And even more than that, I am no longer willing to organize my inner world around this story that does not serve me well. I forgave her for not being able to carry over the peace I once knew. I forgave her for not being healed. I forgave her for clinging to illusions instead of truth. I forgave her for violating my boundaries. And in doing so, I didn't free her. I freed my attention and energy from a toxic stronghold. In psychology, the opposite of cognitive fusion is called defusion. It means you can remember what happened without living inside of it. You can know the story without being the story. That's what forgiveness gave me. Not amnesia, but space. And when attention comes back, life comes back. Energy returns, creativity returns, presence returns. Because I was no longer arguing with the memory. So if there's something you keep replaying, something you keep explaining, something you keep justifying, ask yourself gently, is this memory? Am I ruminating? Is this truth? Or is this emotional reasoning? Is this something I experienced? Or something my identity has fused to? Because some things are not asking to be fixed. They're just simply asking to be released. Forgiveness is not approval. It is diffusion. It is withdrawing attention from a story that no longer deserves to control your energy. Unforgiveness binds your life to what was, and forgiveness releases it back to what it is. It untethers you from that present negative energy, from a past that can only live if you keep feeding it. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It releases what no longer needs to live inside of you. And that is how you loosen the grip of unforgiveness and finally break free from the mental trap of the past. Bye-bye.